Hey everyone, Steven here, and today I'm finally reviewing a SteelSeries peripheral, which I've wanted to try out SteelSeries products for some time now, so I'm excited to do this. Today I'll be reviewing the Aerox 5 wireless mouse, which I got on sale during Prime Day. I'll have a video of me unboxing the mouse for the first portion here, and this mouse typically costs $140, but I got mine for $85. With that being said, part of what I'll be thinking about for this review is whether or not I think it's worth the $140 price tag. But to start, let's get into the specs first, and then I'll talk about what I like, don't like, and the gray area before wrapping the video up. The Aerox 5 wireless mouse features the SteelSeries TrueMove Air optical sensor with a DPI range of 100 to 18,000. This utilizes Quantum 2.0 wireless with a 2.4 GHz connection using the USB dongle it comes with, or this can connect via Bluetooth, also utilizing Bluetooth 5.0. The mouse features 9 programmable buttons, including a custom-built up/down flick switch. I'll do a sound test on these in a little bit. For battery life, this can work up to 80 hours via a 2.4 GHz connection and up to 180 hours via Bluetooth. The IPS is 400 on SteelSeries quick surfaces, the acceleration is 40 grams, and the polling rate is 1000 Hz at 1 millisecond. The material is an ABS plastic with a matte finish with an IP54 rated aqua barrier protection. The switches are mechanical golden micro IP54 switches made by SteelSeries and are rated for 80 million clicks. The skates are 100% PTFE with 3 areas of coverage, and the mouse has 3 RGB zones. This weighs 74 grams total, and inside the box you'll find the mouse, USB Type-C connection dongle, wireless extension adapter, USB Type-C charging cable, and user manual. Before we switch over to the software, let's do a quick sound test of the buttons. Next, let's do an overview of the GG software here. I'm assuming that's good game software from SteelSeries. When you open this up, you have the homepage here, just showcasing some news, talking about products. After that, you have moments, and I've noticed other software is doing this as well with peripheral companies, where this essentially allows you to do quick snaps, recordings of moments in games where maybe you have a good kill or anything like that. It's going to auto record that. I have this disabled, but I've just noticed a lot of different companies are slowly pulling this stuff into their software as well. So I don't have this going. I've just got so many other softwares that do this, but it is nice that it's there if you don't have other software that may do that for you. Engine is where we're going to find our peripherals. So we have the Aerox 5 here, and then I have my keyboard. Next to that, though, is the tab. You have apps. Certain apps work with different things. With this one, the only one I'm really using right now is the system monitor for the keyboard. I haven't really messed too much with this, but next to that is a library, and with this, you can find games that they have presets that they've designed for that game. So you just scan for games and then you can add it. The only one I have is Fortnite, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Going back to gear, let's click on the mouse here. So looking at this on the far left, you have actions, and then this is just the associated buttons with this. You have a top and left view of the mouse as well. So looking at the 9th button here, if I highlight it too, it'll showcase it. You can click on that. And then these are the different things that you could change this to. And there is a lot here. Alphanumeric, editing, symbols, typing mode, function, commands, navigation, arrows, numpad, and modifiers. So I currently have been messing around with this 9th button, just seeing what I could do with it. And print screen has been helping me just get screen grabs of certain things while I'm gaming. But we have the function keys, and I believe this is set to F3 by default. Typing mode, symbols, looking at navigation, arrows, numpad, and you could do recordings as well. So if you needed to do a quick record of something, you could do that also. But yeah, there's a lot going on with that. You have a macro editor if you needed to do this. Looking at the bottom here, you have Bluetooth mode. Also, if you are going to be using this with Bluetooth, I'll look at illumination here in a second. Moving over to the right hand side, you have the mouse sensitivity levels, and you have 5 levels that you can set. You can remove this, so you don't need to use all 5, but you could set this down to just 1 or 2, or like I said, all the way up to 5, but you can't go more than that. Then you have the battery saver settings here. So the sleep timer, illumination dim timer, high efficiency mode, and I like this one right here, illumination smart mode. And what this does is when you're actually using the mouse, it's not going to display the RGB lights because it's underneath your palm. You can't see it anyways. And that helps save battery. The angle snapping here. And another thing here at the very bottom, I have live preview on. So if I shift this over now, then it'll show the angle snapping with this. If I wanted to save it, I would go all the way down here to the right hand corner and I could save it down there, and then I could shift it all the way back and then it'll go back to normal. You have acceleration / deceleration if you wanted to adjust this curve on this. And then underneath that, you have the polling rate. So next, let's look at the illumination here. But I'm going to get my camera set up so that I can have a good view on the lighting while I'm changing it, so you actually can see what this looks like instead of it kind of being not synced and separate. All right, so I have the illumination pulled up right now, and looking at this, if you look at the left-hand side, you have active and reactive at the top, and then we have our effects. And looking at our effects right here, you have steady, color shift, multicolor breathe, and then disable, which just turns it off. Looking at steady here, so just choosing a color, right? You can change that color. You can pick anything on this that you want. Let's go green. Right? The big thing here is just making sure that you actually have this highlighted right here. So we want to highlight all of this if we're going to make any change. Otherwise, it's not actually going to change anything. After that, we have color shift. And with this, we do have presets, and you can see my history here. And then the presets, they only have a handful. There's not a lot of these, but you can create your own if you wanted to as well. And you can essentially change these presets. Looking at this right here, we have our color spectrum, and I can change all of these colors as well, or I could add, which is what you're seeing here with the plus button. So once we have this set, you can change the speed, right? So we have 1 second to 30 seconds if you wanted to. But again, I'm going to have to actually highlight this to make the change. Let's speed this up a little bit, and then you'll see it. Otherwise, what ends up happening is you're making these changes and you're like, why is this not changing? You have to highlight it every time you want to make this change. Usually it keeps it once you have that highlight, but once I click something else, it may turn it off. Show the grid lines if you don't want to show these grid lines here. It just helps me. So now they're not highlighted, right? We'll highlight them again. And then let's go to this color, right? I do like with the lighting here, if you look on the bottom, you can see the upper, middle, and then the bottom is actually underneath the skate here. You can kind of see it at an angle right here, but it does have good illumination with this. And then again, I could add more colors to this and change these. Let's go here. If we set our wave mode, you can set the origin and it's going to wave through the colors. We could scroll through this. Let's keep this, okay? And then looking at the bottom here, and actually I didn't highlight that. And this is, again, you have to make sure you have that highlighted. Let's go there, okay? And then we can see it's gonna do the wave through. You can change the speed of this. Let's pick up the speed here. Let's highlight and pick up the speed. Now it's gonna flash. So they don't have things where it's like you would see with other software. This is the flash mode and stuff like that. You kind of have to create it out of all these different options that they have. Where's the direction going, out versus in, right? Highlight that again, in versus out, okay? Certain things I don't notice a big difference when I do these. I'm not 100% sure what this is doing. I don't know if it's like the thickness of the color here with this line, because it shows it thin. And to me, this looks like a signal, but me just adjusting it, I don't really see a difference with this. And then again, these different presets, and then you can change how bright this is. So we could change it so it goes down. If you go all the way down though, that just turns it off. We'll go back up. So we have that, and then the multicolor breathe here. So breathing, the rainbow effect, and then the steady is really what we have with this. The presets, we only have the 3 here, but if I click on one, I could add, let me add in a color, right? Let's just add in a purple, which is going to throw it off in terms of the look that this one had, but there you go. I could change the speed with that as well. So we have that, and then reactive here. So if you have the smart mode, the illumination smart mode, this really doesn't do much because if you're using the mouse, it turns the light off. But what this does, so right now it's going to go through its cycle, right? But if I click on the mouse, it's going to pull up, I think I have it set to purple. So every time I'm clicking on that, it's showing purple. And then once I stop, it goes back into its normal color mode that you had set. And you can change this to whatever color that you want with this, but they only have steady with this, or you can turn it off. So this is interesting. It's different than software that I've used before. In one sense, it's kind of limited because you're not finding a lot of different presets. Yeah, it has the multicolor, it has the breathe mode, and you can adjust this so that it is a flash or anything like that. But other ones that have, whether it's mimicking the colors that are on the screen, so like a screen sampling effect, it doesn't have that. And it doesn't have some other ones that you may find that are more unique. I've seen other ones where you'll click on it and it'll kind of wave out from the center, things like that. It doesn't have all of those options. It really just has these handful, and then you get to create things out of this. The screen sampling, especially considering how much surface area this has, would be cool. At the same time, you're not really going to notice it because it's underneath your hand, so that really doesn't do much for you as a user. You just can't really see it. So overall, this portion, I like what they have here. It definitely is up to you to create the aesthetics that you want with this, but I do think it is missing some things. Maybe those are things that they can actually add in down the road though. So that's going to wrap up the illumination side here and the software in general. So now that I've covered the specs and software, let's talk about what I like about this mouse, starting with the performance, which has been top notch. I haven't had any issues with false clicks or buttons registering. This has been great when playing an array of games from FPS to RPGs and adventure games. The tactile click of the switches here feels amazing also, and it's very responsive. The mouse has also been great with day-to-day use, and a big part of that, outside of the performance, has been the comfort. I was worried that this was going to be too light, as I typically like heavier mice, but I've really taken to this mouse and think in terms of comfort, it's actually one of the best mice that I've used. I like a palm grip, and this cups my hand just right, but you can use the palm or claw grip with this, and I don't actually feel that my hand gets tired or achy with extended use when using this mouse. The comfort here is matched with the great aesthetics as well. The honeycomb is part of why this is so light, and it actually allows the RGB light to come through more than other mice that just have a small amount behind a logo or a small strip around the edge of it. I like the illumination smart mode, which I talked about in the software portion of the video. I like that option because this really helps with battery life, and the battery life here is great. Although I won't personally be using this via Bluetooth, the 80 hours that you get just via the 2.4 gigahertz connection is very solid. So I get almost 4 full weeks out of this mouse before needing to charge it based on my current use, and I think part of that is the illumination smart mode. With higher use, I get around 3 weeks, and turning the lights off altogether, I can actually stretch this out even further than that. I do want to note that you can charge this and use it at the same time, which should be a given with any wireless mouse, but I've run into a few that don't actually allow that, which is always an annoyance. The USB charging cable here is really nice with the mesh sleeve, which I prefer over regular rubber. Now, although I won't be using this via Bluetooth, I do like that this has the option for that, as having more options is always better in my opinion, as long as the performance is still good. And with this, when you do use this via Bluetooth, the lights still work on this, so it doesn't just turn those off, which I've seen some other products where the lighting effects work when you actually have it with the PC, but if you do switch over and use it with some other item, whether that's a console or via Bluetooth or something like that, you end up losing that feature. So the fact that this keeps this is really good. So this having the Bluetooth presents more versatility, and if I ever end up needing a Bluetooth mouse, I don't have to go out of my way to purchase one. Moving on, let's cover what I don't like about this mouse, and the first one here is the lack of a USB-C to USB-A adapter without using the extension adapter. It seems like everything is slowly moving over towards USB Type-C, but in the meantime, if your PC case or motherboard doesn't have it built in, you'll end up using the extension adapter here because that uses a USB Type-A cable, or you'll need to buy a separate adapter. Next, the programmable buttons and the level of customization in the software is great, but the up-down button and the front button have some issues. Starting with the up-down switch, I like the idea of it, and pressing the button down feels great, but trying to press it back up with this light of a mouse just makes the whole mouse shift. So you're going to need to have a high degree of control here to not make this actually move the mouse. The down flick takes more pressure than the up flick also, and depending on the game, it won't be a big deal necessarily, but for first-person shooters, if you need it so that you're not going to move at all, and maybe you're doing a scope or something like that, then this is going to potentially be useless to you unless you just have this high level of control. Now, I don't have any of the games off of the preset list outside of Fortnite, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but looking at Call of Duty, the up click of this switch is for crouching, which I'm not saying it would be useless here, but you're gonna have to adapt and have a high level of skill to have this work for you. Initially though, I think for most casual gamers, this will just be frustrating. For high skill level players, this is going to be useful. I'm definitely not a high skill level player though, so for those casual gamers, this is where I think it may be one of those things where it's just going to be more frustrating than useful. Of course, you're not stuck to these presets. You could just change this to something else if you wanted to, and you don't actually have to stick with any of the ones that SteelSeries has come up with for these specific games. You can design this for whatever you want it to be and have your own presets that you've designed for specific games. Looking at the 9th button on the mouse, this was one that I was excited about because I thought it would be like other mice I've used in the past where you could essentially use this to quickly change the DPI in first-person shooters when using a scope. This isn't the case here, but it does have an upside, which is there is an extremely high level of customization that we've talked about that you can do with any of the buttons, but you can do with this as well. So for my use, I've actually changed this over to the screen grab button. I've used it as a pause button and Windows key, just to name a few, which has been great for editing and certain games. But there isn't a setting for allowing this to change the DPI to a specific amount just while holding the button down that I've been able to find, which is a bit of a letdown because it's in the perfect place to do this. My workaround is eliminating all of the DPI settings except for 2400 and 400 and then setting this button to my DPI cycle button. I usually stick around 2400 to 3200 for my DPI with just normal use and most games. And with this, I don't tend to actually cycle through DPI settings a lot, so this was an easy workaround for me, but I still think it's a bummer that you just can't change this to allow it so that when you hold this button down, it just slows the DPI down like with other mice that I've used. Last are the presets for certain games, which, as I mentioned earlier, I only have 49 off of the list of games they advertise, and I couldn't get the preset to actually work for me. Now, the software scans for games, and that part is easy, but once I was actually in Fortnite, the preset didn't actually seem to work, so I had to go into the settings of the game itself and then switch these over to whatever I wanted it to be. So I ended up using the 9th button for the build button, and so to me it just didn't work. So I don't know if I'm missing something with this, but I always like to err on the side of software needing to be easy. It needs to be as easy as possible without a ton of steps to get things done. So in this case, it was just a process to get everything where I wanted to be, and ultimately the presets didn't work for me. And with this, when I actually went to get the preset set up, the software stopped working for me. So it was giving me an error code and then it kept crashing. I don't know what was up with that. Maybe that was just a fluke. I had to uninstall the software and then reinstall it. And since then it's worked really, really smooth. But I just overall had issues with these presets. They're just, for me, it's not doing anything. I don't have any other games to test it in, unfortunately. And then of course the issue with the software giving me an error code when I did initialize that preset. But haven't had any issues since, and I've been able to in at least Fortnite, and I've done it in other games where I change the buttons over, but unfortunately for me, the presets didn't work, so I ended up having to just set up everything myself within the game settings. If there is something that I am missing with this that you know, definitely let me know in the comment section so I can actually try that out. But in the meantime, I wasn't able to figure anything out. I wasn't able to find anything that let me know what was going on with this other than they're just not working. Last, let's cover the gray area stuff, starting with the USB Type-C dongle, which I've had connection issues with at the normal distance that I actually have other USB dongles that I've used with various mice plugged into my PC, and it's about 2 feet. And so I haven't had any issues with the other wireless mice I've used in the dongle in this regard, but it hasn't happened all the time with this mouse, but it happened enough times that I actually ended up switching over to the USB extension adapter, which since switching over, I have had 0 problems. I'm not sure what the issue is with the range here, but this is also the only wireless mouse connection dongle I've actually used with the USB Type-C, where I've not used a USB Type-A adapter that just plugs directly into my PC. So maybe it is my motherboard and it's just a little bit older at this point, and so that was the issue. So not 100% sure, so I don't know if this is something that's actually going to happen with everybody, but again, since switching over to the extension adapter, I've had 0 issues. Last is the normal price here, which may be too much for some people considering the other options that are on the market that are similar in specs. Now this is a great mouse, but I think it's just a little too high at this point considering this competition that it has, and most people, it's going to be hard for them to pay the $140 price tag. Other mice have certain options this might not have, such as being ambidextrous or the ability to adjust the weight. Now, the good news here is this is constantly on sale at $90 to $110, and to me, this keeps the price competitive if you can find it at that price range. I think part of this is because it's even on their own website now where it's discounted down to $110. I think they're clearing inventory for some new mice that they're going to be having coming up, just like I'm seeing right now with their headsets. But like I've said with all of my other reviews, ultimately your purchasing decision boils down to your specific needs and budget. So that's going to wrap this video up. I'm extremely happy with the Aerox 5 wireless mouse, and now that I've spent some time with it, I can say I personally would be willing to pay the regular price for this mouse, although the stiff competition this faces might be enough to make some people look elsewhere. For me personally, this decision boils down to the feel, aesthetics, and battery life, which have all been top-notch. The drawbacks here can be somewhat of a nuisance, but not enough to deter me from truly enjoying this mouse. If you can wait for a good sale though and grab it for under $100, I think you'll be happy with your purchasing decision. If you have any questions about this mouse, let me know in the comment section. I'll have a link for this in the description also if you'd like to pick it up, and as always, thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button for me as it helps the channel grow. If you want to continue to follow along with all of my content, hit the subscribe button for me, and I'll see you in the next video.